Good morning.
Good morning.
Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm Dave Emmert, your facilitator for today's service. I'd like to welcome you all here in person and those on Zoom. Happy St. Patty's Day, a holiday that we, recognize our, whether we have connections or not to Ireland and Celtic traditions, typically by drinking green beer, Irish stout, Guinness, and a good whiskey. So that's okay. We've absconded it, from St. Patrick bringing Catholicism to Ireland since they absconded it from the spring equinox. It's only fair. Anyways, again, welcome here for those in person and those on Zoom. If you're willing and able, please stand and let's give a big wave to those on Zoom. Let them know we actually do think about them. Thank you. And if you could please turn off or put your cell phones on vibrate, that would be awesome as well. If you have an announcement, hopefully pretty soon as I'm about to read them, or a joy or sorrow to read in a little bit. There are forms on the back table next to Richard, and you can fill one out, and hopefully Richard or someone else will quickly bring it up to me. If you're new here, please ask any of us how to access the website. If you ask me, I'll tell you to Google it. Or find out how to get involved in our activities. If you want to receive our newsletter, please ask Deborah Smith or Becky Tanner, or really any one of us, and we'll see what we can do to point you to Deborah Smith or Becky Tanner. So Tina's going to be away. She's hiding herself away Monday through Thursday this week at a Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association retreat in Scottsdale. Terrible.
And they are fun.
So if you need to reach her, phone, email, or text, she's only checking her systems twice a day or so. So she's not going to get back to you really quick. And instead, because she won't be here on Tuesday, she'll have office hours from noon to 3 on Friday, the 22nd. All right. Other announcements. So April 5th will be is the first Friday hike, and it'll be a pontoon boat ride and birding trip on Patagonia Lake. Let's see, we are nearing the maximum allowed for the boat. However, if you have not RSVP'd, AKA please do so quickly, get with Molly, and you are interested in going, let Molly know, and she'll see if it's possible to set up a second boat ride. So apparently there's a lot of interest.
So I welcome you to worship here today. We take other religions and incorporate them all the time. We need to do it carefully, but it's interesting to remember. What I've been listening to a podcast called The Witch Life. 3 friends who moved away and then moved back to Portland and discovered they were all witches. And they do rituals together, and they talk, and they're really funny. And one of them has some Christian friends who are kind of concerned about what she's doing at Easter time. What is this Ostara thing? Why is it so near Easter? And she said to her Christian friend, well, Easter is really mostly just a pagan festival. And her friend was horrified. She said, go talk to your Christian pastor, see what he says. It was that kind of church. So she saw her friend again. She said, what did your pastor say? Yeah, he said it was a pagan ritual or festival. So just reminding us of the history of the bunnies and the eggs and why they're there, and that decorating Easter eggs or Oster eggs are kind of a similar activity. And later on, I started thinking about the equinox and that we're perched. It's going to be the 19th. But we're perched at this balance, right, of light and dark, and it happens all over the world. Now, some people will move into greater darkness, we will move into greater light, but for a moment, the sun goes over the equator and we hit equilibrium. And I wondered what that meant in your life. What does balance mean for you? So welcome to worship. Welcome with us.
Our opening words come from David Ensley, who was the music director at Oak Ridge Unitarian Universalist Church from 2015 to 2020, and has served as the organist at the Oak Ridge Evangelical Lutheran Church in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, since 2021. He describes himself as a formation for holy orders in the Celtic Christian Church, a bard, and a cat dad. Let us begin worship by lighting our chalice, a symbol of Unitarian Universalism, and remembering where we are in the year. At this time of balance, at this time of awakening, we honor the fertile earth. We honor the warming breezes. We honor the growing light. We honor the nurturing rains. Welcome, spring, new life to bring, to land, to us, to all. Welcome, spring, rebirth we sing, within and round us all. Blessed be. Well, now I will add stones for all the joys and all the sorrow that fill our hearts, but have not been said.
Okay. Since we've already lit the chalice, I will try to be a little more somber and serious and not clown around with you today.
Good women.
But in the last week, we brought in another $6,200, $6,200. So we are up to $69,740 on our way as far as we can go. Okay, and I noticed that there is another pledge out in the box now, so it will be added. So if you want your pledge to count, put it in the little plastic box out there, and I will make sure you get counted. This church needs about $9,000 a month to operate, and anybody can multiply. 9 times 12 is what? $108,000? $108,000.
I can do it if you give me time.
Yeah, but no, 9 times 12 is 108,000. So we're still a good bit short.
So today I thought the moment for stewardship might be a little different because I found something written by Dr. Victoria Weinstein, UU minister. It's called "The Offering is a Sacrament of the Free Church." Does anyone here understand why our offering is a sacrament of the free church? Well, many parts of the world, you have a state religion, right? We don't. So we keep our church alive. It is a gift and an honor that it is ours to create, ours to leave, ours to love, ours to hate, ours to support. So it really is a sacrament of the free church. And this is what Reverend Dr. Victoria says. We say in our church that the offering is a sacrament of the free church. What we mean by that is that we believe it is a blessing to be able to govern and support our religious community ourselves, to make possible by our generosity everything we dream of and do to live out our shared values. Every week we lift up the spiritual value of generosity by taking an offering for the ministries of this church. Our plate then, as it is passed among us, becomes filled with the evidence of that generosity. It is our harvest, gathered in every week for what most nourishes us. And once a month, we take a second offering to help further in the world. So we have heard a bit about Ostara, and we know that today is St. Patrick's Day. The only really interesting tidbit I could learn about St. Patrick to share with all of you is he might have been two people. And in the 1940s and 50s in Ireland, that was a big kerfuffle. Was he this one poet, Or was he a warrior monk? It sounds like a really bad Dungeons and Dragons game thrown together. But that may explain why so many different parts of Ireland claim that he came from there and that he became the patron saint of Ireland. But for balance sake, let's talk about another saint, Gertrude of Nivelles. This is also the day she died, just as it's the day St. Patrick is thought to have died, so it becomes their saint day, oddly. And so she was a patron saint of, one thing was gardening. Now, in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Dutch actually speak about her and celebrate her. Most of them are Anabaptist or Reformed Protestant. Some are Lutheran. They don't usually have saints, except some of the Lutherans. But they celebrate St. Gertrude of Nivelles because on this day, they know to plant their onions and their peas. Patron saint of gardener, also of mental health issues and of cats. She is the patron saint of cats. I wanted us to think about the equinox and balance, most of all. For some people, the word balance is always good. Is it always a good word to you? Raise your hand if balance means something good, right? Yeah, for most of us. And balance in our bodies is so important. A few years ago, someone offered to start doing Tai Chi here, and I've read that is the number one exercise older adults should do because keeping our balance is so important. Yesterday, I read an article about vitamin D, and they did an experiment on women ages 50 to 70 and discovered if they start taking 2,000, I don't know the amount, milligram, or is it? Units, yeah, it's not, a day, and then some take 4,000, their memory really does start to improve, but their reaction time slows down. Their balance goes haywire. So it's important to have enough vitamin D, but maybe not too much. It's good to have a balance in our lives. So often in our religious life, we have thought, as Reverend Susan said, that to be spiritual, we must be otherworldly and disconnected. But Celtic religion and pagan ritual reminds us of the holy in everyday life and in this earth. One of the things that happened to witches throughout Europe, or women who were healing people, who were smart, about 1 million were killed at the time of the Enlightenment because we emphasized too much the mind and denigrated the body and animals around us and women. It was also a way to take away midwifery from women. But the unexplained, the mysterious, I'm all for science, but sometimes there's a shadow side that pops up in our lives. There is a great need for balance there. And so it makes a lot of sense that we celebrate those pagan rituals that bring us back and remind us we are here and now, balanced on this earth. And there are those who say that balance may be a crazy thing to pursue. I read yesterday about Gen X women, so born from 1965 to about 1980, who thought that the saying is, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at the same time. And a number of women have embraced that. Now I'll raise my children, or now I'll write my sermon, then I'll walk that samoyed, right? You have to balance it out. You can have it all, just at different times. But they're discovering that when they were often latchkey children and decided to commit to staying home with children, that if they do that as they had expected for about 15 years and then go back when the children are in school or left the home or in college, they can't go back to where they've worked before, in the way they've worked before. Many of their careers have moved on. For some of them, making the choice was a choice to not work in that field at all. So it's really important to think about what is true balance, where do we find it? And I found a really interesting article by Jessica Malnick. called The Myth of the Work-Life Balance and Why Chasing It is Making You Miserable. Her idea is that well, first of all, if we're trying to be balanced in every way in life, we go to the middle. But very often success happens at the extremes, right? You just have to pick when you go into those extremes. She also says, when we talk about work-life balance, which is important and really good, and a way to renew yourself and be better for work, we always imply, almost always, that work is this time we suffer. It's like we're going to the mines, right? Luckily, many of us have had much better work experiences, and actually, work can be a lovely time, a time that we enjoy or that we find ourselves. If our work-life balance means my me time happens only when I'm away from work, then at least 8 hours of many days are going to be horrifying. She suggests we find what the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, Hungarian, calls flow. How many of you have heard about flow and finding flow and being in flow? And right. And it's when you're doing something you enjoy so much, you forget yourself. I know that I can cross-country ski or, unfortunately, for all the basal cell cancer I've had, body surf that way. I can just do it for hours and not eat and love it and catch the right waves and keep on doing it. And it's got to be something that's a little challenging, something you're sort of good at, and something you can give yourself to. And then you find that you love what you're doing, you love what you work. Have you ever had one of those days that just flowed and it was really productive? They're so rare, right? They should be celebrated. And it talks about it's important to create that for yourself in your life, which again is hard when you have an extra animal in your house who's very young and active, but you find the time to be apart and connect, and you find those things that challenge you a little, but not too much that you get interrupted. Some books even talk about how, of course, you have to take breaks, right? But don't scroll. If you're in an office, talk to people. Or if you're at home, drink some water. Do what you need to, but don't break the flow too much. And Mihai says that he interviewed a number of people, including composers and orchestra conductors who felt like they were in the flow, and that their arm became an extension of their baton, right? That's what it's called. He said, I can't do that because I don't do that. I don't compose, I don't wave around one, but I can understand what that means, that you kind of forget yourself and you're connected with this wonderful thing. And it's interesting because it feels unbalanced, right, to go to that extreme. But I think what the most important part that I take from all of this is that you are present to that. When I think about Karen Horton and her quilting, I'm assuming that she had moments where she was in the flow. Moments that were frustrating when she probably cut things wrong or hurt herself or cut herself. I do that a lot. But there were moments when she was in the flow. I think the person I go back to the most for spiritual wisdom is Thich Nhat Hanh, and something he taught me years ago, which is we often say, that's going to be my time. When I'm done taking care of the kids, and yes, it's good to go away and unplug and turn off your phone, but if you have to do that, how chopped up is your life, and how little do you appreciate every moment? He says all time is your time, and he invites us to be present in any way we can be in that time. So I imagine living in balance. Now, I only body surf. I would love to know how to do it on a surfboard, but I imagine it's a little bit like being balanced on a surfboard, really aware of your situation, shifting your weight as you need to, responding to a world that's changing all around you, but there's some inner focus inside you. A few years ago during COVID, the Baja Four Ministers did a series about change, and we had this image of letting go of a trapeze and reaching for the next one. So you're no longer on the surfboard. You're actually letting go. But there's a kind of flow. You expect you're going to get that other trapeze, right? You expect you're not going to fall flat on your face onto the ring or into the water. There's a kind of balance even when you're challenged and you push yourself forward. And as Reverend Susan Mankerseal had said, it means that we are present here now, that we are mindful of our situation. I guess for me, that's what balance really is. It might be you're doing more of one thing than another, but you call yourself back. It may mean that one day you are more heady in your spiritual practice, but another, you call yourself back and you feel yourself in your seat. And you remember that spring is coming here, even though it's pretty darn cold still. And you remember that the days will get lighter, and you're aware of the stars at night. You balance your inner and outer life. One thing Unitarian Universalists try to be good at these days is remembering that we're embodied, embracing that, being present to that. And when we meditate, we even pay attention to the noises around us, our need to cough. It's okay, you can cough. In a moment of silence, it's fine. So I will finish with these words. Remember, as Reverend Susan says, out of our busyness, we're called back into balance, back into ourselves and the silence of present being. But it is not just back into ourselves to which we are called. It is also the awareness of the continuous presence of the environment around us and within us. We're called to remember our relationships and our dependencies. We are called to once again feel the oneness which sustains our being in balance with creation, and to do so with wonder and appreciation. And I am so grateful to be part of a denomination that in its complexity sometimes arrives at balance, sometimes just arrives at complexity. When I was at the Festival of Books 2 weeks ago, a group who were manning a Muslim table came up and asked us questions. And we're surprised to find out that there are Muslim UUs, although I wish we included Islam in our sources. That's something we've been working on. We just call it a Judeo-Christian, not an Abrahamic faith, right? And then I think I told you about the couple who came up and said, "We hear you do devil worship here." They were from an Ohio church and clearly, not at all worried about us. And then the young woman who said, "I'm a pagan, but it's getting really lonely to do ritual alone," and I could steer her to UUCT and their coven of Unitarians of this area. We don't always get it right, and there's a lot of chaos, but I think the complexity of what we offer and being present to that in our communities and in ourselves offers a richness to this world that the world richly needs. So thank you.
Our closing words come from Reverend Sharon Wiley, the called and settled spiritual leader of Chalice Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Escondido, California. Reverend Wiley began serving Chalice in the fall of 2012 and was ordained by the congregation in March 2013. She received her Master of Divinity degree from Starr King School for the Ministry and is in good standing in final fellowship with the UU Ministerial Fellowship Committee. Her preferred pronouns are she, her, hers. As we near the spring equinox in 2 days, on March 19th this year, the hours of day and night are in balance. In honor of earth-centered traditions that celebrate this time of year, we observe that the flaming chalice holds the elements of the 4 directions: earth, air, fire, water. The lamp oil for earth, the air that feeds the flame, the fire we light, and the chalice itself, the cup, the symbol of water. As we look to our chalice, let us reflect on the balance we seek in our lives, the balance we seek in our hearts, the balance we seek in our world, a balance we may have started to find here together today. As we extinguish the chalice, may we feel all the elements of the natural world within us. May we carry that balance out into the world, our week, and our lives.